Do I Really Hate Men just kept popping back into my head, because that is actually how you feel when you're going through the really dark stages of divorce.
She's a life coach and podcaster that helps women all around the world to recover from relationship pain and divorce. After navigating her own 6-year divorce and representing herself in court, she decided to write her first best-selling book, Do I Really Hate Men?, to show women that they can do it too. Angela Allan-Burns.
Single mums get a really bad reputation. You know, they drink heavily, they take drugs, they have multiple children by multiple fathers. Everything I did through my divorce and through the fight and through the struggle was all about fighting for my children, fighting for what was right for them. The aim of the podcast and the book is to move you from that place of hate. You know, without you, Chloë, and your team, I don't think the book would be a reality now. And if I only help one person, then it's all worth it.
Angela, welcome to the Inspired by Show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It feels really weird that we're finally sat here after working for months and months together on your book and hearing some really exciting stuff that you've got coming up as well. So welcome. Great to have you. Now, Angela, you're best known for your podcast and now book, Do I Really Hate Men?
Yes.
And I remember when I first heard of this podcast that you were running, I was like, Do I Really Hate Men? Absolutely love the title, love the angle. And I'm sure it's attracted some interesting conversations. So I want to start there.
Yes.
Tell us about where this whole Do I Really Hate Men theory concept came from.
Yeah, so I went through almost 6-year divorce, and after that period, I started to document really what had happened within that divorce, documenting what I'd been through, how I felt, and then it became about recovery, and I started documenting that. And I never really intended it to be a podcast or a book. It was just something that I did for myself, as journaling, I suppose you would say. But then when the idea turned into, I want to get this message out there. I want to help people through my mistakes and through what I've learned. Podcasting came into my head, and then I wanted to write a book and just help as many people as possible. But the name, I really struggled with the name, and Do I Really Hate Men just kept popping back into my head. Because that is actually how you feel when you're going through the really dark stages of divorce and afterwards. When you're trying to sort of, get back on the dating scene and you get let down, and it is a real emotion that you feel at that point. Now, I want to make it clear, I don't hate men. And if you listen to my podcast, you will know that. And I think when it was crunch time of, I've got to really make a decision on this, I was actually on Facebook and I was reading one of the many divorce sites that I'm on. And I read this post from a lady, and she said, I hate him. I hate him. I hate him with, and I thought, if that's not a message from the universe telling me that actually this is the right name for the podcast and the book, because it resonates with so many women. But yeah, the aim of the podcast and the book is to move you from that place of hate and that place of, the deep darkness of what divorce can do to you, to a better place.
Wow. And that's so inspiring that you can go through such a dark time and then ultimately understand it, heal it, to be able to then help other people. There's a lot of growth in that.
Yes.
In that process.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I was trained as a life coach many years ago, and I think that really helps me to get through. But whilst I was going through those divorce years, nearly 6 years, I didn't really work on myself, and I just put everything into my children and everything into trying to get on with life. Everything was about my children and my work. I really needed to work, and I needed to earn the money, because as a single mum going through divorce, you spend a fortune on solicitors, and lawyers' fees, and it's a really scary time. But then you have to get to a point where, you have to give to yourself, because when I got to the end of my divorce, I was broken, totally broken. And even as a life coach, it took me a long time to get myself to a great place, because I did make mistakes. I didn't fill my cup up in that time. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made. And the journey that it took me to get to a good place is really what I've documented in the book alongside my story. How you can get to a good place, how you can find your purpose. because there is a beautiful life after divorce, but you don't see that when you're in it. And I speak to so many people on my podcast, women who have, come through and are now living a life that they would never have dreamt of living if they'd have stayed in their divorce. And yes, it's a big decision to leave your husband, or maybe that decision is taken away from you and you find yourself in a place where you're going through this really traumatic, life-changing event in your life. But how you actually get through that, getting through that, however long it takes, it's essential that you do that and find that good place, not only for yourself, but for your children. Your children need to see you save yourself. They need to see you move on. They need, and like I said, there's a beautiful life after divorce. And part of my work as a life coach now is helping people to get to that good place.
Yeah. And often they can't see that at that point in time. For a lot of us in our businesses, the clients that we work with, when they decide to work on themselves, they think they know what they want, but whether they actually know what they're going to get the other side. And I think that's where so many people that you speak to, whether it's on the podcast or your readers of your book or actually working with you, they're probably at that point where they don't realize how good things can be. They're just stuck in the difficult stages.
Yes, absolutely. And it can be very lonely when you're going through a divorce. And, for some people, it happens relatively quickly. Other people get divorced, but then they suffer for many, many years afterwards because they don't do the work on themselves. And I talk about this a lot. We are not a tree. We do not stand still. We have to keep moving forward. You have to work on yourself to get yourself to that good place. One of the things that I talk about, in the book and with my clients is that, you have to, the only thing that you ever fully control of in your life is how you think and how you feel and how you act. And if you can control how you think, and it is absolutely possible to do that. A lot of people say, well, I can't control that. Yes, you can. You can control how you think. And you can change how you think about a really difficult situation. I remember a time many years ago when I was a single mum, actually, very early on with my first son, after about 4 or 5 months, and I wasn't married, but this was just one of those things that happens in life. And there was one weekend, and I was struggling with the baby, trying to work. I went back to work after 4 months because I had to, and I remember it was Valentine's Day, and I was in the car with my son in his baby seat, and I found out from my ex that he was going to take my. Sorry, Can I start again? I was in the car, and my son was with his dad, and I found out that he was going to take him away for the weekend with his new girlfriend, and I was devastated. And I remember sitting in my car crying and thinking, well, that's just ruined my weekend. I knew that the rest of the weekend I was going to be depressed. I was going to be down. I was going to be distraught and tearful. And then I had an epiphany, and I thought, do you know what? I can choose to have a different week. I can choose to feel differently this weekend. And in that moment, in that car, it was a really turning point in my life. I decided that I was going to give to myself, and I wasn't going to, go to the worst place and feel depressed and down. And I went to the shop and I bought myself some flowers and I bought myself some chocolates. It was Valentine's Day. Nobody else was going to buy them for me. And I went home and I watched a movie, and I actually had a really great weekend. And I managed to get to about Sunday afternoon, and then I broke. And then I, went into that, tears and all of that. But I actually managed all of those hours. I changed my mindset, and I changed how I perceived the world around me. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't do that all of the time. And then I went through a really difficult divorce a few years later and completely lost that for a while. But part of my recovery with myself was to find that again and to find that strength. Because it's not easy to think positive rather than, it's so easy to be negative. Negative is a place where we are comfortable. But you can change negativity into positivity. It's about mindset. It's about controlling your subconscious mind. If you look for positive things around you, you will see positive things. If you look for negative things around you, you will see negative things. So it's about training your brain to see the good and not see the bad, and that happens over time. I'd say to people that negativity is normal. Don't try to completely eliminate negativity from your life, because that's impossible. And I know a lot of self-help books try to get you to do that. You shouldn't be negative about anything, but actually it's a normal part of life. You need to learn how to manage your negativity and manage your thought processes and manage your feelings and manage how you think about things, and flick a switch and turn it round.
Nice.
Hard to do. But part of my work is that I help people to do that, and through the book, that's what I help people to do, to see their situations differently.
I find it so interesting, because so many times, like you say, negativity is comfortable, and whether it's in a relationship, our own life, our business, when something's not going to plan, it's so easy to only see that. It's like you focused on that, but we've got to look at the bigger picture, and also then look at how we can learn from this, right? Now, one of the things, Angela, which I love about what you've shared, is that you went through your own experience of divorce, and then a switch went for you as well, where you said, actually, I'm now going to help other people with this. I'm curious about the journey. So what was the thought process? Did you decide to start your coaching business first before the podcast and the book? Or was it more a case of, I'm going to help people through the book and the podcast, and then the business kind of came and fell from that?
Yeah, I think the podcast and the book came first, and then through that, realizing that I wanted to help people on a deeper level, and being asked to work with people on a one-to-one basis, then the business and the life coaching, I've picked up again, and I've been life coaching people for many years, whether or not through business or not, in life, with the teams that I've worked with, and with people that I meet. And, I don't want to sit here and say that, I am perfect, because none of us are perfect. We're all trying to do the best that we can. And I always say that, your life is you're like a car on a production line. I'm probably about, halfway, 3/4 of the way, and I'm not complete. I'm not finished. I'm not the bright, shiny car at the end. I've still got things that I need to work on, and always will have. But it's a matter of, wanting to try to always be better, and always think about what you can do differently. And I think when you have children, they're a great inspiration to be a better person, and to manage your negativity, and to teach them, because children see you happy, then they learn how to be happy. Children see you laughing, they learn how to laugh. Children see you relaxing, they learn how to relax. But if children see you stressed, they learn how to be stressed. If they see you sad, they learn how to be sad. But we shouldn't beat ourselves up about having these emotions in front of our children. This is one of the things that I really talk about in my book, because through divorce, you will feel desperate, you'll feel lonely, you'll feel terrified, you'll feel, fear for your future. And your children will feel part of that with you, but you have to try to mask them from that, but also be open about it. Because if they can see that you're sad, and you work through that, and become happier, if they see you stressed and you have strategies in place to be relaxed, they go, oh wow, look how she did that. This morning she was sad, and now look, we've had a fantastic day, and Mummy's smiling again. So they learn through our sadness, and they feel our sadness even when they're babies. I remember when my youngest son he was just a toddler in nappies, and as I said, I was a single mum then too. My life has been about being a single mum, but that has brought me to this place where I help people. So it's all part of this wonderful big picture. I wouldn't change anything, even though when you read my book, you'll see that I've been to some really dark places. I wouldn't change a thing. But yes, he was in nappies, and I was sat on the bedroom floor, and I was crying, and I was just, once again in my life, I was broken. Things were really difficult, really tough. And the most wonderful thing happened. He toddled over to the bedside table, took a tissue out of the box, toddled over to me and gave me a tissue. And he'd only just started walking. And I looked at him with tears in my eyes. And I thought he was playing at the other side of the room, but he could feel my pain. He could feel my emotions. And I gave him a big hug. And that was a real light bulb moment, because I think we try to mask things from our children, but even if we don't say anything, it's there. And this is why I tell people, talk to your children, don't tell them the really deep, dark stuff that's going on. But if you're sad, tell them you're sad. You're sad because mummy and daddy don't live together anymore, but we still both love you and things are different, and have those conversations even when they're very young. And that helps you and it helps them to get through.
Yeah. I think that's one thing, Ange, that I've found really resonated with your approach, particularly on your podcast and in the book, and by the sounds of it, just in general with your parenting style, because you're always so vulnerable and transparent.
Yeah.
I remember, and spoiler alert for the book, but when we were editing your book and when I was reading it for the first time, our editor actually really struggled with the first round of edits because of the emotion, because she said there was so much raw vulnerability in there. And I suppose for anyone that's watching that is considering writing a book, or is already writing it but is thinking, I can't put that in there, or how did you decide how vulnerable to be in your book and what to include rather than what not? Sorry for the interruption. I know you're probably really into this episode, but I've got something I need to share with you that I think you want to hear. Now, what I often find when people watch these episodes on the Inspired by show is they're really inspired, they want to write, but they don't know how. And they're looking for a structured step-by-step plan to write and publish their own best-selling book. Well, guess what? That's exactly what I'm going to give you away today. So I wrote Just Write the Damn Book back in November 2023. And since then, we have had hundreds of people get their copies. We've had people buy a copy of the book, listen to the audio, download the PDF, you name it. We've had people get some fantastic results from it. But for the very first time ever, I'm actually going to be giving you a copy of this for free. Yeah, that's not a PDF version. That's an actual physical copy that's going to be sent to your front door on us. You don't need to worry about paying the shipping or paying the postage or even paying for the book. That's what we're going to be giving away for free today. So if you want to get a copy of Just Write the Damn Book, where you can actually learn the step-by-step system to writing and publishing your best-selling book, and get your hands on this best-selling book that's had so many reviews and such fantastic feedback, so that you can ultimately write your book as well, all you've got to do is click the link in the description. So get your copy now, give us your details, we'll send it across to you, and now let's jump back into the episode.
Well, I think when I first started writing, it wasn't about writing for a book. So I could be vulnerable. Everything just went down there. All my, how I was feeling. So it was all captured. And then when the decision came, about the book and the podcast, I thought, how much of that do I really want to share? And don't get me wrong, there are things that I don't share and I will not share, but I just thought it can help people, because I want people to know that whatever bad place they're in, I've been to a really bad place too, and that you can recover from that. So for me, it was essential to keep that stuff in. And now when I read the book, I become quite emotional myself, because obviously it's my story. And even today, I was reading parts of it coming down on the train and filling up on the train, and it takes me to some dark places. Also, it makes me feel so proud of who I am now and what I've done. I think that the lowest point, I thought I'd hit the lowest point many times, but it was always my children that saved me. I thought everything I did through my divorce and through the fight and through the struggle was all about fighting for my children, fighting for what was right for them. And it was very difficult, and I didn't want to go to court that many times, and I didn't want to have the fight and the struggle. It's just something that I had to do. But my children saved me. Whenever I was having those moments, it was my love for my children that kept me going. And many times I thought I hit rock bottom, but then when I actually did hit rock bottom, I'd been to see another lawyer for a second opinion. The full story would take me ages to tell you, but I realized that, what I thought was going to happen didn't happen. And I felt totally at a loss as to what to do. And I was on the tram coming home from that meeting, and there was just tears coming down my cheeks. And it was a really hot, warm summer's day. And I went home, and that night I opened a bottle of red wine, as I did frequently throughout my divorce. And I sat there and I started to think about ending my own life. And rather than what I'd done previously many times, is go, no, how could I do that to my children? You can't do that to my children. And it always went out of my brain and my mind instantly. But this time it didn't. It stayed there. And I started to think that actually my boys would be okay. I started to think about what would happen to them. My mum would probably have my eldest. My little one would go to his dad, and they would actually be okay. But I could end my pain now. And ending my pain at that point became more important than my love for my children. And that's when I knew I'd hit rock bottom. That was a real low moment. And luckily, again, something snapped within me, and I was like, wow, I need help, And I should have really had some help long before. I shouldn't have got to that bad place. But you just keep going on because, life is like divorce is like an express train. It just keeps going on, and it gets faster and faster, and you don't know when it's going to end. And you just can't get off this express train. And part of me wanting to end it was bringing the express train to an end. But luckily that didn't happen. And that then really hitting that low point really gave me the determination not to get to that low point. And the great thing about being at a very low point is, where do you go from there? You can only go up, You can only go up, you can only go on, you can only find your strength. And quite often being in that despair is the trigger that you need to give you the strength to go on. Because, you don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice that you have. And that was a pivotal moment in moving on. And I had many struggles after that. And I still hit low points, but I never got to that bad point. Wow. So I say my children saved me. I wouldn't be here without my children. 100% wouldn't be here without my children. And I have the best relationship with them. And I think that is because I've been a single mum with them for such a long time. We are super close. And it was just the way that life was meant to be. And people talk about single mums very negatively, They drink heavily, they take drugs, they have multiple children by multiple fathers. And it really incensed me that, single mums get a really bad reputation. But actually, they're superheroes because they do everything. They bring home the bacon, they wipe tears, they watch children's television endlessly, they fix a broken toilet, they do all of these things. And we just get on and do it, and people say, how do you do it? Well, you do it because you have to, But I have a beautiful life now, and I found my purpose through it, and through the podcast and writing the book. It's just been such a fantastic experience to help people. And if I only help one person, then it's all worth it.
Yeah, I can completely relate to a lot of what you shared there. And thank you for being so transparent and vulnerable. And that's part of, as I said earlier, one of your superpowers as well. And I know that's what will help your readers and your listeners. Now, in the book writing journey, obviously, as you said, it started as a journal. So a lot of your book was about your story. And one of the things that I love that the book has now transformed and evolved into is it's more of a help book for others with your story weaved throughout it. Yes. So I want to talk about your writing experience purely when you had the book hat on now. So not necessarily as a journal.
Yes.
What was it like writing the book? How has it been getting this book to the place now where, I mean, we're recording this, the book's not actually out as we're recording it, but it will be when this is released. So, up to the point of seeing the cover and the name, and sort of talk to me about the book experience and how you found it.
So exciting. I mean, I thought that I had a book, it exactly as it should be, because that's what I'd written. And I came to you, and when we had our first conversation, I thought, this is the lady that I need to help me to get my message out there, and just felt that connection with you straight away. I felt like I was in great hands, and I didn't even know then that I was in amazing hands, because you and all of your team have really helped me to take what I had and make a book out of it, because it really wasn't in proper book form as it should have been. So knowing about that, writing experience and moving things around and talking a little bit about my story, but then interweaving that with what you can do, how you can help yourself, what you can do if you find yourself in that situation. It has become, yes, about my story, but more about how it can help you. How it can help you, how it can help you as a single mum, how it can help you as a parent, as a woman. A lot of the information in there is about life, is about how you can live the best life that you can live, how you can be the best parent that you can be. And it's not about being perfect, because none of us are perfect. And that's why I share a lot in my book about myself, to showcase that I am not perfect. I haven't been a perfect mother. My goodness, how many times have I sworn in front of my children? So many times, but many people don't admit that. I always say sorry. You have these moments where life just becomes so stressful, and, you shout at your children and you get angry. And I think the biggest lesson in that is apologize. Teach your children how to apologize. Teach your children that nobody's perfect, and it's okay not to be perfect. So when people read the book, I hope that they, it's not coming from me standing on a pedestal telling people you should do this, you should do that, and you should do the other. It's me coming from a place of, I've done these things, and, I've been, we have these shared experiences, and how I've worked through that and come out the other side.
And I'm curious, from your perspective, what do your children know about the book? How do they feel about the book? Do they know they're in the book? Or, how was that? Because sometimes it's hard for families and friends and even clients of entrepreneurs who are writing books to, how much do we share of them, and what do they know?
Yes, so they're fully aware, and obviously I talked to them both before anything was made public. And, when I had my podcast launch, it was a really warm day, and my son was going out for a run, and he put my podcast on the day of the launch, and he rang me and said, "Oh, come and meet me at the pub." And I got in the car, went to meet him, and he came out with 2 glasses of champagne, put them down, and he said, "Congratulations, Mum. I'm so proud of you." And obviously I shed a little bit of a tear, but they're aware. They're aware of the content. I think they're just super proud of what I've done and the journey that I've been on, because they've been on this journey with me. And they didn't know a lot of what's in the book, because they were children. So I think it's been a bit of an eye opener to them, what my experience was at that time.
I hear this with so many people that we publish their books and their stories, because when you're writing your own book, and it might be similar to you because you journaled first, which became your book, which is how my first book came about as well. But most people, when they're writing their book, you end up going through some sort of developmental journey anyway, because it's a bit like therapy. People say writing a book is like therapy. You're writing all these thoughts and these feelings, but also these strategies, these techniques, what you're teaching people and readers, but you end up still uncovering stuff that either you've forgotten about, you didn't know, or you're thinking of a story to emphasize a point, and then you suddenly uncover something that you've forgotten. But what we often don't realize is how much that we know and we've put in a book that we'll give to a stranger, but we haven't yet told our family, our friends, and so on. So it can be quite a journey. It's amazing to hear that they've been so supportive of that, obviously through the podcast and through the book. when it comes to your experience of working on your book and, getting it to the point now where we're at recording this, what would you say has been the most surprising part of the process for you?
Firstly, you're right. It is very much like that, like therapy, writing a book. The most surprising part of the process is just seeing it all come together and other people reading it and give me some really great feedback and, saying that they felt emotional. And even yesterday, I had a fantastic piece of feedback about something that I'd said, and I was like, wow. And that is always a surprise to me, because it's just me. It's just what I wanted to get across. But actually having that resonate with people is just super important, and it just makes me feel really good about what I've put together and what I've achieved and how many people I can help. And without you, Chloë, and your team, I don't think the book would be a reality now. So I'm, forever grateful for what you and the team have done for me by, being my champion and supporting me, putting me in the right direction, advising me on changes and how to set things forward so that the reader will get the most benefit from it. So it's been an incredible journey.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And I wish I could say it's all me. It's definitely not. Yeah, it's Chloë and a very big team behind the scenes who have done incredible work.
There's no I in team.
Definitely not. Yeah. And I remember when we first had our conversation actually about your book, and we'd actually just got engaged and we were having a conversation about divorce. And I remember you saying, I'm so sorry that I keep talking about divorce. I was like, it's fine. It's fine. My parents are divorced. I know plenty of the experience. And it just shows how far you can come. Now, Angela, what I often find as a publisher is a lot of entrepreneurs are like you, sat in the chair, have a podcast or have a business, and they know that a book will help them grow their brand and their business, but they're on the fence. Maybe they don't have enough time, or they're struggling to see how it can fit in. Now, you, as you described, single mum, very, very busy in your other projects anyway. You've got a podcast, somehow managed to find time for a book. So what would you say to anyone that has this hunger to write a book to help other people or to grow their brand and their business, but just hasn't quite really committed to it yet?
If you're doing something that you love, if you're doing something that aligns to your core values, and if you're following your purpose, then you just do it anyway. It's not hard. It's not difficult. Now, getting to a place where you're doing those things can be quite difficult. How do I find my purpose? How do I know what my core values are? That's something that I help people with. So if you're doing all of that, I've got so many plans now and so many things that I want to achieve. I want to speak on stages. I want to help people. I want to empower people. I want to share my story. I want to, through my written words and spoken words, help people to get to a great place and help people to find their beautiful life. When the caterpillar thought that it was the end of the world, they changed into a butterfly. And so many people I know feel like a caterpillar about to die, especially when things are tough. And life doesn't have to be the end. There can be a beautiful life after getting to that hard place. And that just is the reason why I wake up in the morning, being able to do that. And the more that I've been doing that since my podcast and my book, and my life coaching, more opportunities have opened up for me. So, when you're on the right path, when everything fits together, it just so happened that the podcast came and then the book after that, and lots of other things that have happened. So, I'm very much a believer in fate and destiny. And I think if you're following the right path, things come together for you. The key is, how do you follow that right path? And, we probably need another 2 or 3 hours to talk about all of that. But yes, it doesn't feel like work when you're following your passion.
Definitely. I completely agree. And actually, I would say I'd go one step further. With my first book, I actually had no other option. So I was reducing my client base. Leads weren't coming in as much. I was working in my business. I was trying to get on stages, trying to get on podcasts. And I just felt like I was pushing. And every door was closing in front of me. And I remember it felt like I was in a room with multiple doors, like Alice in Wonderland style, and all the doors were locked.
Yes.
And I remember researching how all these other people were getting really great results in their business. You know, you see all these ads and you're like, why are you getting it? And it's not working for me. And I just remember one of my mentors said to me, I think I had one mentoring session left that I'd paid for, thank God, because I had no money left. I had hardly any. I think I had a credit card that I could have used if I wanted to, but that was it. And the mentor said to me, Chloe, people need what you have to offer, but they just don't value you enough yet. You value you, these stories, the experiences. You know you can help someone, but sometimes we know, but actually we can't express that value. And if our people haven't got a podcast or a book or anything, it's like there's no proof that actually it's of value. And he said to me, you need to do something to add value to your brand. And I remember thinking, I just need to do something to change it. I didn't want to do a podcast at that point because I thought once you start a podcast, you have to continue with the podcast, as we both know and love as podcasters. So a book was the option. And because I had no other option, it was my passion. I wanted to help people. I wrote my book in 10 days. And it was like
amazing. Now,
don't get me wrong, my client base had gone down a little bit. So I had a little bit of time, but actually I didn't have time to waste. So I agree with you. I think when you've got the passion and you've got the hunger and you need it, or others need it, it works, you know, and it really kicks in. And I remember, similar to yourself, Angela, the name of my book came before anything else. And I remember for you, Do I Really Hate Men came before we even really, I think you had that as a name for your podcast before we even started talking about the book. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I could just see this book cover for Determined and Dangerous, which was my first book. And I pulled together, I don't even know how to use Photoshop very well, but it was like 3 a.m. And you know, when you're inspired and you just can't switch off. And I pulled together this what looked like a book cover, sent it to one of my friends, and I said, entrepreneurial friend. And I said, what do you think? And she said, oh my God, when can I read it? And I was like, when I write it. I haven't started yet. But I think the name of a book and the cover really brings it to life. And Determined and Dangerous, Just Write the Damn Book, Do I Really Hate Men? They're all titles that really grab attention. So you had your name. What was the process like to actually then turn it into a book cover?
I think I wanted to make it really something that women would relate to. So I've sort of like got the brand with the black on the pink, and then the cover really came from the podcast thumbnail that we have. That I have for my podcast, Do I Really Hate Men? So it was quite an easy transition because both of them fit together really, really closely. And it's interesting what you say there about, you know, having to push through and things not working. I tried before the podcast, to approach people the old-fashioned way, if you like, about my book. And although I had some really great feedback, everything that I got was, no, it's not for us. No, it's not for us. And I thought, maybe I'm not supposed to get my book out to the world. Maybe people are not meant to read it. But then I didn't accept that because that didn't feel right inside of me. It didn't feel right. So then the podcast happened, and then I met you. So and then everything changed. So sometimes you do have to, even, you know, you are following your purpose. You know you're doing the right thing, but you're not getting anywhere. You've just got to keep trying. Just got to keep persevering. You know, in life, you know, when you hit rock bottom, you've got to get up and you've got to take action, because it's only taking action that makes anything happen. People talk a lot about affirmations and manifestation and the secrets. Now, I've got a lot of time for all of those things. I talk a lot about words of power, you know, affirmations, use them a lot. But actually, you can manifest all day long. You can say your words of power all day long. You can meditate all day long. But if you don't take action, you know, even if you don't have a plan, just do something that takes you one step closer to that plan. And many people just give up because life gets in the way, doesn't it? You know, we're busy working, bringing up children, we have jobs, we just, the rat race, you know, we just go from one thing to another thing to another thing. We never take time, and we never take stock of actually, what do I want? Where do I want to be in the next 2 to 5 years' time? And you know, a lot of this came from my life coach training. But actually, if everybody had half an hour every week to work on their own life and their future and their belief system and their aspirations, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? You know, we should teach people, we teach in our schools, kids in our schools, how to work on their life, how to make their life better. And we don't. We teach them algebra and trigonometry and all that stuff. But, you know, just half an hour a week to work on yourself. An hour a week, wow, you've hit the jackpot. You'd be going places, but you have to take action. I am a self-confessed self-development junkie. I've read lots of books and I love it. It's the only type of books that I read. But you know, you can read all the books, but if you don't actually do something, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to make any improvements in your life.
Yeah. And that's the reason you've been able to achieve so much. I was going to say so quickly, but it's compounded. So like you said there, you've worked on your book for years, pitched it to traditional publishers and kept getting no's, great feedback, but not for us. But you didn't take no for an answer.
I had moments where I paused for a long time. And I thought, oh, you know, this isn't going to happen. And life, again, gets in the way. But I always came back to it. And I always thought, you know, one day. But then you have to realize that one day never comes. You know, one day is now. The moment is where life should be lived. You know, there is only this moment. There isn't the past. There isn't the future. There is only this moment. And what you do with the time that you have in each moment makes your future even better. So yeah, it's always about, you know, moving forward, thinking about, you know, and even if you procrastinate, even if you have, you know, times where you know, you can't get out of bed, then do that for a while, but then get yourself out of bed. And if you can only do one positive thing, do that. If you only do one positive thing in a day, just do that.
Yeah.
And eventually do 2 positive things in a day. You know, look after your mind, your body and your spirit. And if you try to look after all 3, then you're filling your cup. And when you fill your cup, then you can fill the cup of people around you. And that's when you can make a difference.
Yeah. And then the doors start opening, right? It's like when you surrender to the outcome of this must work, this must work, this must work.
Yeah.
I'm curious from your perspective. So obviously you'd pitched your book to traditional publishers, getting a series of feedback, but no's, decided to pause.
Yes.
What was it like for you when you finally got the yes from us then? Because it wasn't a quick thing. We take a while to decide who we publish. So what was it like when you finally got the yes of, oh my gosh, I think I might have a publisher?
Oh, just amazing. You know, just the thought that actually I will have that book in my hand. I think it was the realization that people were going to read my words. And that was just everything to me. And, you know, you and your team were going to help me through the process because you don't know what you're doing. You know, I put pen to paper, but, you know, did I write a fully completed book? No. Was it, you know, ready to be published? No. You know, I needed you and your team, to help me and to guide me through that. And, it's been an amazing experience. And I now want to go on and write more books. You know, I've got, now that I know, if I'd have worked from you from the very beginning, I would have done things very differently. But I got things to a certain point and then you came along to help me. Excuse me. So sorry, I got to a certain point and then you came along to help me. But now I you know, I know the format. I know that I have an incredible team that can help me to write more books in the future. And that's another big part of what I want to do. My podcast, my book, I want to write more books. I want to speak on stages and carry on with my life coaching and just help women really on a global scale because, you know, obviously it's very, very difficult to go through a divorce. It's very difficult to parent. You know, it's very difficult at times to parent, you know, when there's a mum and dad and together. But parenting is the hardest job you'll ever love. And I cannot tell you how much my life changed when I had my first baby. It just, everything became magical and life just made sense, you know, whereas before it's just you or you and your partner, but then you have a baby and you just think, wow, this is this has changed the rest of my life, and I now have this little baby to look after, and you just feel so much love, more love than you've ever felt in your whole life, and it's just beautiful. It really is just beautiful. So I've forgotten what your original question was now. I've just gone off on a tangent.
No, don't worry. I love it. And for anyone watching, I'm currently pregnant. So when I hear these sort of things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see how it's going to pan out.
It's the best job in the world.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing. It's like, it's when you love what you do in any area, bringing in more joy like this. I mean, obviously everything changes. But also talking about not necessarily babies, but also business babies, you know, writing a book, people say to me all the time, it's like, I've given birth. The amount of comments I hear about labor pains with a book and, you know, getting it done and then being like, I'm so tired of this book. I never want to see it again. Like the similarities to having a baby and honestly so much. And I think you've come on such a journey and even just seeing you sat here is amazing to see now. I'm curious, Angela, completely different topic, but you talked about you being a personal development junkie.
Yes.
Me too. Love it.
Yes.
So I get a lot of inspiration for books I write through books I read.
Yes.
Other people, podcasts I listen to. So what other authors or speakers inspired you to go on to write your book or are inspiring you now?
So it's really difficult to pick even one or two or three or four. But there's been some, you know, oh gosh, so hard. Napoleon Hill was sort of like one of the forefathers, if you like, of personal development, many years ago. Somebody as well, very much from years ago, is a guy called Jim Rohn, the Ultimate Jim Rohn Library. If you haven't listened to it, it's amazing. And I think that is just a great foundation. You know, it's before the internet, but everything that he says you can resonate with. I've taken a lot of inspiration from him. There's a fabulous little book that I tend to recommend for people, anybody that is new to personal development books. It's called The Art of Being Brilliant, and it's by Andy Cole and Andy Whitaker, two Andys. And it's just a really simple little book, but it helps you to live a better life, to see things in a different perspective, to be happier, the art of being brilliant, and, you know, how you deal with the negativity and mood hoovers. And it's just a really great place to start. And I think once you start with those type of books, you know, you get so much from them, and so you can feel so empowered, and you know, to put into practice the things that you read. And I think through all the things that I've read over time, I've then built my philosophies on life, and you know, that's what I've poured into this book, my philosophies that have been gathered from many different people and many different books. One of the first events that I went to was the great master who is Anthony Robbins. I went to his 3-day event, did the fire walk and all of that many years ago now in London. And yeah, I just can't get enough of it. I love it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Well, plenty there for us to have a read or a listen to. I totally agree. The people you've described are incredible. I think you do go on to find inspiration. Funny enough now, even now, I've written 2 books. I was reading a book on my holiday, and there were parts in it which really I thought, I want to put that in my next book. You know, even the writing style, the layout. And if you can imagine, we've published, at the time of recording this, 54 best-selling books. So safe to say we've done it a fair few times, but I still get inspiration of structures. And also, and I hope this doesn't happen to you or anyone else that's published a book, but you can't ever read a book the same way after you've written and published a book, because you end up analysing, oh, I see how they've done that, or I know how they've published that bit, and it's just, you kind of dissect it. It's like being an entrepreneur. It's the same concept, right? But it sounds like you've been on such a fantastic journey, Angela, and you're continuing to go on to that, obviously, with your podcast and your book. Now, your book's out now is the time that this will be released, so I would highly recommend people go and have a watch. Paperback, Kindle, hopefully audio soon. Being a podcaster, we'll wait and see. So, Angela, we have one final question that we ask every single guest that comes on the show, and obviously today we've been inspired by you, your story, and obviously your book, which is out. So, who do you know that has an inspiring story that you think we should have on this show next? Okay, so one of the guests on my podcast was
lady called Miss Amber, and she lives in California. She is a preschool. She owns preschools, and she has the most heartbreaking story, but it's also such an inspiring story about how she came back from adversity and her experience of losing her children through her divorce and gaining them. And she now lives a beautiful life. So that she probably stands out for me of the people that I've met so far on my journey. I also have other inspiring single mums and people who have been through things that I am trying to get on my podcast. So, Ferne McCann is one of them, very inspiring single mum. You can follow her journeys on a journey on TV. And Scary Spice, Mel B, who has done some fantastic work for women suffering from abuse with Women's Aid. I'm trying to get Mel B on my podcast as well. So if anybody out there knows either of those two, then send them my way.
Love that. And I love it. And do you know what, podcasting, if you don't ask, you don't get. It really,
absolutely.
Really is.
I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much, Angela, for being on the show. It's been great. And obviously, thank you so much for trusting us with your book. As someone that's been through, divorce from 10 years old with my parents, It was so amazing to pick up your book, to say yes to it. And I'm so excited for all the amazing things that are coming your way. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for making it happen, Chloe.
No problem. Well, what an episode that has been. I hope you have all had as an inspiring journey as I have today with Angela. So many golden nuggets in there, whether you're watching because you've been going through a divorce of your own family, or if you've been watching as an entrepreneur thinking, I really want to write a book, but I'm a little bit stuck. Hopefully the inspiration that Angela shared with you will inspire you to get that pen on paper or get those fingers on the keyboard so you can get writing and publishing. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you comment on this video. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, share with me what has been the most inspiring thing that you've taken away from this interview. And if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, make sure you subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on our next inspiring guest. I'll see you next week.